I first saw Bhagavad Gita when I ran into the devotees in Boulder, Colorado. I had dropped out of University of Notre Dame because I realized that my desire was to make people happy. But I had no happiness, so how will I do that? And I realized that I was studying sociology because I thought better than chasing after money for the rest of my life, I should try to help people. But I realized that that my social work was to help other people get a better education so they can get a better job, so they can make more money, and they can buy all the things that didn't give me any happiness. In other words, as frustrated as I am, I'll make other people that frustrated. So I was very confused at that. I didn't know what to do. And we lived here. We saw the devotees once, but we never came to the temple here. We were on 533 East 13th Street, between the same blocks as, Tompkins Square Park, but I never ran into the devotees, unfortunately. One time, I saw them at Cooper Square chanting Hare Krishna. They're just passing through. But anyway, in Bhagavad Gita, when I ran into the devotees in Boulder, they gave me a Bhagavad Gita, and there I read, Prabhupada gave me an example. It's just like you have a bird in a bird cage. You can make the bird cage out of silver. You can make it out of gold. Just imagine at today's prices. You can put nice carpet, you can put a nice TV set, but unless you give some food to the bird, he'll be unhappy. He'll never be happy. Same way, this body is like a cage, and inside this soul is sitting like a little bird. And we can do everything, give facilities to this body, but unless we give some nourishment to that soul, he'll never be happy. And I said, this is the knowledge that I was looking for. I never went back to the university. I became student of Bhagavad Gita and disciple of Srila Prabhupada. So, Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Panchakalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhu vaivascha patitanam bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So as part of my career in Krishna consciousness, I was the temple president of a temple in the northwest corner of America called Portland. And at that time, just across, Portland's right at the top of the state, and it's divided from Washington State by the Columbia River. And the other side, a little ways not far from the temple, there's a village called Kelso. And Mukunda Maharaj, well, at that time he was a Das Adhikari, was living there with his wife Janaki. And he had a job, and he used to come every so often to the temple. And then he would tell me stories from the very beginning of Krishna consciousness. And he told me how he ran into Prabhupada, because he was not far from the Bowery. We know that Prabhupada left Dr. Mishra's place because he wanted his own place, and he moved to the Bowery. And the young people at that time were more receptive than the old fuddy-duddies uptown New York. So somebody told him, so he wasn't far from this, a couple of streets over from there. And he was in a band, and they were just beginning popular. And he was just beginning to feel the pinch of material success. He said Prabhupada came into his life perfect time. Because before, when they were starting out, they would jam together. They just, do whatever they wanted and play whatever they wanted. Now there was contracts to negotiate and contracts to sign, and then the people wanted you to play this and they want you to play that. he was feeling the pinch. His heart was just getting pinched by material success, so-called success. And somebody told me that over on the Bowery, there's a Swami from India teaching Sanskrit. Because I guess one time Prabhupada also was teaching Sanskrit. So one day he decided to go over there, and he walked down to the Bowery. I don't know what the Bowery's like now, but that was the bowels of New York in those days. So, and he found the building, and one person he had come from California, and he was an artist, and he rented a AIR loft. I don't know if they still have them, huh? No. Those days, there were artist in residence loft, because it was big, wide space and lots of light and airy, and you could paint. So, because he'd gotten a big inheritance from his parents, so naturally he had money, so naturally so many people became his friends, so-called. When he realized he was being ripped off by all his friends, he gave up the idea of becoming an artist in New York, and he gave the apartment to Prabhupada, but unfortunately he gave it to some other of his friends also, that they could also stay there. And the rent was already paid till the end of the year. So Prabhupada moved in there. So Mukunda found the place, and the whole front of the place, we came in the door, it was all these drunks, drunken bums. And if you drink a lot, then it has to come out somewhere. And once you're drunk, you're lazy. You don't want to go anywhere. So they just would go behind the staircase. So he opened the door, and a wave of stale urine smell hit him. And he had to step over all these bums. First, for Prabhupada, they were very respectful. They would get out of the way, and they would, go like this, Swamiji, come, But he had to step over the bums, and he had to go up this staircase with this horrible smell of stale urine. And he finally got to the top, because the artists in residence lofts, they were on the very top of the building. And he knocked on the door, and nobody came, just he heard a voice say, "Come in." He said, "I opened that door, and I stepped back 5,000 years in history. There was this golden person, summertime, so Prabhupada didn't have a kurta on. There was just golden person with these orange robes, draped over his shoulder, and orange robes on his hips, and he looked like he just stepped out of 5,000 years of history. But he was sitting there, he had a shipping trunk. Nowadays we all have nice aristocrat and Samsonite suitcases. But in the old days there was these square with all the tin foil, and not tin foil, but tin things to reinforce the shipping trunk. So he had a shipping trunk. Well, that was his desk. And he had a broken typewriter, and there was manuscripts all over. The whole place was complete. It just inconceivable. It didn't make sense, Here's this guy from 5,000 years of history, and there's a broken typewriter and all these manuscripts lying all over the place. And Prabhupada looked at him, he said, just like when you meet an old friend, just like you're walking down the street, and suddenly you see your old friend coming, You know how you look when you see, He said, Prabhupada just looked at him like that, come. And there was no place to sit, because Prabhupada was also just sitting on a mat behind his trunk. So he sat on the floor, and he began asking questions, and Prabhupada began to explain to him that we're having, Bhagavad Gita class every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. In old days, we didn't have it every day. We had Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and then Sunday was the feast. So, anyway, he just felt so happy in front of Prabhupada. And so he decided to come to the class on, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Started coming to the classes. And then at some point he decided that Prabhupada was his spiritual master. And then if you've read the Leela Mrit, you know that those other boys who also could stay in that apartment, one of them took some LSD and went crazy, and he threw a bar of soap at Prabhupada and screamed at him, and Prabhupada just grabbed all his things. He ran down to the street, and he didn't know whether to go left or right. And New York is not the place you want to be if you don't have anywhere to be, anywhere to stay. Prabhupada just looked left. He didn't know whether to go left or right or where he was going to go. Somehow, he had the phone number of one of the original devotees. That time he was known as Cleaver. He later became Karlapati. And he was living nearby somewhere. So he went to the phone booth, if you remember those things. We were just in London. Out of all the thousands and thousands, they kept over 3,000 of them just for the character, the big red phone booths. So he called Karlapati. Karlapati said, I'll be there in 10 minutes, So Karlapati took him back to his apartment. Now Karlapati, he was an Afro-American devotee, and he had a white wife who was this is beginning of feminist. She was super feminist, and she did not like Prabhupada at all. Because first of all, she saw her husband was getting interested in whatever this guy is teaching, and taking it away, that was taking, the time that he could spend with her, he was spending with Swamiji, so it was very tense. But he explained everything to Cleaver, and Prabhupada slept on the couch out in the living room. It was very uncomfortable. You can imagine he had to go and use their bathroom, and very uncomfortable situation. So somehow or other, Mukunda, he was considered like a leader in the group of people that was coming. So they decided one Saturday morning that let's go see Michael. His name was Michael Grant. Let's go see Mike and see what he can do. So somehow they came there. It must have been 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, which in those days was an ungodly hour. 9 o'clock we'd peek out. Oh my God, the sun's out. Pull the covers over our head. So, and all night long they had been practicing, and they had guitar chords and amplifier chords all and sheet music all over the apartment. And he opened up the door, and there was Karlapati with Swamiji. And he was like shocked, So immediately he invited Prabhupada in. And Prabhupada could see that he was a little bewildered. He said, it is proper, because he was just beginning to understand, Prabhupada is my spiritual master. Now my spiritual master come to my house. What do I do? And Prabhupada said, it is proper when the spiritual master comes, you offer some fruit. So he went up and woke up his girlfriend, Janaki, said, go cut up some fruit. So they cut up some fruit, and he sat Prabhupada down on the couch, and he sat on the chair, facing him. And then, because especially in those days, America meant TV culture, So he immediately turned on the TV, because whatever you're doing, you have to watch TV. And if you're talking with your friend, you just, you sit there watching, and the commercial comes and you talk, and even my mother had one in her bedroom in the ceiling, so she could go to sleep, and it just all night long would be going. So he turned on the TV, and Saturday morning must have been Mighty Mouse or Tom and Jerry or something. And Prabhupada said, just looked like this, and this is nonsense. And he said, I jumped, and in one motion, I just jumped over, turned off the TV. Yes, Swamiji, this is nonsense. And then the cat jumped in Prabhupada's lap, and Prabhupada just went whack. Of course, there's other pastimes of Prabhupada, the cat rubbing against his foot, and Prabhupada, scratching the belly. But anyway, that time the cat jumped right into his lap, and Prabhupada said, whack. So they began to explain to Mukunda what was going on, what had happened. And he kept explaining, he kept saying you. He said, you have to figure out what to do. You have to make some arrangement. And I kept saying you. And Prabhupada just looked at him like that. Now you've seen some of the profile pictures of Prabhupada, like a swan gliding across the lake. Prabhupada just looked at him. And he told me, he said, even if I shut my eyes, I can still see Prabhupada's eyes just seeing right through me, you know. And I had no idea what to do, but I said, all right, we'll do something. So then somehow they began looking for a place. And somehow they found this little storefront here on 2nd Avenue with a sign, Matchless Gifts, which was sort of prophetic. So one afternoon they brought Prabhupada here, and they brought the owner of the building, and he was just, an regular American guy with, blue denim pants and blue denim jacket, and type of guy who drink beer and watch, baseball games all Sunday, a regular old guy like that. But he saw Prabhupada, and he was just so respectful to him, and he kept saying, Your Honor, and he helped Prabhupada sit in a chair. He was very respectful. And the devotees started preaching, and he was very respectfully listening. So then they negotiated out the price of the apartment. I don't know what it was, but and then the devotees were preaching, and he said, and for just $10 a month, you can become a life member of our society. Those who became later, he missed out. So, and he just looked and he said, how about if I knock $10 off the rent? So then Prabhupada got this little place here. And it was just, there wasn't all these nice pictures, it was just an empty place. And Prabhupada started preaching, there was a nice seat, there was just, some old, milk, those plastic milk crates turned upside down with an old dirty rug on top. That was Prabhupada's Vyasa-san. And they started having programs here. And at some point, the Mott Street crew, Kirtananda and Hayagriva and all these people started coming around. And they had been to India, and they had all kinds of things that they, brought back from India. They thought this place is just, it's just completely stark. We should decorate this place. So they brought over all the Rajasthani bedspreads, and they brought all the Indian posters that they'd gotten in, and bells, and all kinds of things they brought. And they started cleaning up, fixing up the place, putting all the bedspreads along the walls and hanging the pictures, the posters, taping the posters onto the bedspreads. And then some of the other devotees came in and they saw this going on and said, this is Maya. Swamiji says we just take what's what's necessary. Because Prabhupada was teaching from Isupanishad, just what's necessary. He said, this is extra. No, we're decorating this temple for Krishna. No, this is the first ISKCON politics. So they were, this big argument was going on. I guess Prabhupada must have heard something was happening. So he came downstairs, he came inside, and Prabhupada looked around, his eyes got very big, like a little child's, and he saw everything, and he gave the final verdict. This is Krishna consciousness. We don't hear that many more, but when I became devotee, that was, by accident, if you did something right, the older devotees, oh, this is Krishna consciousness, because that was the slogan. And if by accident we did something right, this is Krishna consciousness. And then Prabhupada went around and he looked at all the pictures. There was, some of the posters were demigod posters, and he would tell them, you take this one down. And then there was one, they didn't know what Swamiji was going to say about that. They thought it was a big cat or something, And Prabhupada came and he looked, he said, oh, this is a great devotee of Lord Ram named Hanuman. he's a monkey devotee of Lord Ram. They all looked, devotee of Lord Ram, yeah. And somehow or other, although it's not very common, they actually had a picture of Sadbhuj Mahaprabhu. They had a poster of Sadbhuj Mahaprabhu. And Prabhupada said, oh, this is Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada had talked about Lord Chaitanya. They looked, this guy with 6 arms, that's Lord Chaitanya. So then finally it was decided that they would take initiation. One batch got initiated, and then there was I guess they were the second batch, Mukunda and a few other people. And so they had initiation ceremony, and then Michael became Mukunda, and I can't remember what her name was. Jan became Janaki, like that, and I can't remember who else was there. But anyway, because this is my memory of his memory. So Prabhupada didn't like the idea of his disciples living as boyfriend and girlfriend. He wanted them to get married. So they decided that this would be a good way to introduce Janaki's sister named Joan to Krishna consciousness. But she was living in San Francisco on the East Coast, 3,000 miles away. So anyway, they wrote to her, said that we're getting married, you should come. And so at that time, now we'll switch over, because we were there, and for a while, Jamuna had an ashram in southern Oregon, and we were there for they installed her deities, Radha Bana Bihari. So we had come down from Portland, and Jayajit had come up from Berkeley, and we were all there. And my wife was 6 months pregnant, but she wasn't going to miss the opportunity. She just jumped on a bus and went there and stayed with her, and she learned how to cook so many things. And then we came for a couple of days, and Jamuna was telling us all these stories. That they invited her to come. At that time in her life, she was into a diet called macrobiotics. Practically the only thing you can eat is brown rice and chikusan soy sauce. What did they call it? If you don't eat something, if you don't eat following his diet, you're mapaku something. I can't remember.
Sanpaku.
Sanpaku, yeah. So, and ghee, butter, sugar, all these things are the maha elephant aparad. So they picked up Jamuna at the airport, and they brought her here, and they went up to Prabhupada's room, and he had cooked a nice feast. And he was all ghee and spices and butter and all these things, sugar. She was just picking. Now I don't know if you've ever eaten at an Indian's house, but they will just feed you and feed you and feed you and feed you. I can remember the first time we were in one of the very first traveling Sankirtan parties. It was just meant for traveling Sankirtan. Ordinarily, when Prabhupada was in a city nearby, then we would, just like we were in Boulder, so Prabhupada came to LA. So in Colorado Springs, we would stop, and we got thrown in jail, and then in Taos we chanted, and Santa Fe we chanted, and then somehow somewhere in Utah we chanted, and then we would do Sankirtan that was traveling Sankirtan. But just to do traveling Sankirtan, to travel and preach, we did that. And we came to some place in Oklahoma, and we were chanting on the campus, and some Indian professor came, and he was in Dodi and Kurta. This is way back in the late 60s. He was in Dodi Kurta. He taught his classes in Dodi and Kurta. And he saw the devotees there, and he said, I am a householder. It is my duty. You are sadhus. You are saints. It is my duty to invite you to my house to take prasad. And so we fixed a time, and we went to his house. And his wife cooks such wonderful things. We never tasted prasadam like that, And they kept coming, and he kept coming and said, "You want some more?" I said, "No, that's right." Plunk, "You want some more?" "No, that's right." Plunk, Especially this nice halava. He kept coming. "You want some more?" No, plunk. "You want some more?" No, plunk. Then he said, "It is our Indian system that somebody comes to the house, then we must give them something to eat. And when they're finished, we will offer them something more. And they will say, no, that's all right." But actually, they're not being truthful, they're being polite. They want more, but they don't want to look greedy, so they say, no. And then again we give. Then again, when they're finished, we offer, and they say, no, that's all right. Again we give. When they finally roar like a lion, "No!" then they're fully satisfied. So we had never eaten at an Indian's house, and we were all very nervous, and we didn't want to commit any offense or anything. So we all just kept saying, "You want some more halib?" No, plunk. They got to our temple president. He said, "No!" Then we all learned, "No!" So unless they fill your belly like anything, Indians can't be satisfied. So Jamuna was just nibbling at everything. So Prabhupada wasn't happy, because your guest has to eat like anything. But Prabhupada just nibbling at everything. And then they sat down, and then Prabhupada said, "Oh, I know what you will like. All my disciples like it too much." And he reached behind him on the shelf. There was this tin can with sugar crystals flowing down all sides of the can. And Prabhupada brought out a gulab jamun. So here was ghee, milk, sugar, all the maha aparas of macrobiotics in one thing, He said, "All my disciples are liking too much." And he handed it to Jamuna. And at first she thought she was going to hide it in her hand, but gulab jamun is not something you can hide in your hand. So she bit into it, and she said, she just knew right then and there she was going to throw up right in front of everyone. Somehow she got it down, and she made a very strong vow within her heart that I will never, ever, ever have anything to do with this fellow in my life. And then they were talking and talking. Prabhupada was so chanty, he just made this vow. She's not going to have anything to do with this guy in her life. At the end, Prabhupada said, "You're coming from the bride's side, So it is the bride's duty to prepare the feast. If you will come tomorrow, I will teach you how to do Indian cooking." And because she was a cook, that enchanted her mind. And find out Indian recipes, Indian cooking, So Prabhupada gave her a whole list to buy and told her, "You come tomorrow at 7:00 and we'll start making the feast." So there was one thing on the list that said turmeric, something. Anyway, the old guy won't notice. I couldn't fight it, So 7:00 in the morning, she showed up. And like I said, 7:00 was an ungodly hour. Anyway, she showed up with her bag, and Prabhupada, invited her in to the apartment back here, and he went through the bag and immediately said, "You did not get turmeric. You did not get turmeric. Haldi," She made some excuse, and Prabhupada said, "But the boys are finding it nearby. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I have some." And like I said, it was 7:00 in the morning is an ungodly hour for us at that time, So Prabhupada looked at her. He said, "You look tired. Why don't you go in the next room and lie down on the bed and take some rest?" And Jamuna thought, "Oh my God, the guy is a dirty old man. I can't believe it. The guy's a dirty old man. I can't believe it. If he comes and puts one finger at me, I'm out of here." She went and lay down on the bed. After a few minutes, Prabhupada came and called her, and he said, "Do you know how to make a medium soft dough for making samosas?" And she said, "You mean like for crochet? No, what do you call croissant? Or this or that?" And Prabhupada said, how old are you? And you don't know how to make a midi and soft dough. All you know is these big fancy words. And she said, Prabhupada took the atta, the flour, and made a little pile. He sprinkled water on it. With one hand, he did the whole thing without touching with his left hand. He rolled it into dough, kneaded it out, and then he taught her how to make samosa. Oh, first of all, he said, our Indian women, they're afraid that some hair may fall into the preparation. Because Jamuna, she had, like Jimi Hendrix, she had hair all over the place like this, And she told me, this is her description, that she came with jeans, a t-shirt, and no bra, and her hair all over the place like this. And Prabhupada said, our Indian ladies, they're afraid, they're very clean. That one hair may fall in the preparation. So they tie their hair back. Can you tie your hair back? So she tied her hair up and said, wash your hands. And every time she put her hand to her mouth or did something, wash your hands. That was the mantra all day, wash your hands. And then he taught her how to make samosas, and she was making samosas all day. And then after a few days, they had the wedding ceremony and everything, and after a few days, she was talking about going to Nepal because she was very beautiful at doing calligraphy, yes. Since COVID, I forget silly things. Anyway, calligraphy. And there was some calligraphy from Nepal that she wanted to learn. So they were talking about going to Nepal, her and her boyfriend, Sam Spears, what is his name?
No, Roger Siegel.
No. Oh, Gurudas, all right. Okay, the Shamsundar came later. That's after she got to San Francisco, they got Shamsundar. Okay. So one day Prabhupada asked her, why do you want to go to Nepal? And she thought for a minute. And said, Swami, we're looking for the highest thing. And Prabhupada's eyes got very big. He said, oh, you were looking for the highest thing? You just stay here with me. One day I will show you what is the highest thing. One day I will show you what is the highest thing. And there we were in southern Oregon, installing this beautiful deity of Radhabana Bihari, the highest thing. And they went back to San Francisco, then they invited, the Sam Spearstra, or whatever his name was, and Malati, and all their friends, and somehow they, on, what street was that? Frederick Street, right near Haight-Ashbury. They started a temple there. So this is some of the history of this place, how it came. And when I joined in Boulder, but it was very, very cold. It was because I was living in the mountains, because it was summertime, we were traveling around. And I decided that the mountains above Boulder, that was, what the Christians call heaven, what the Hindus call Swarga, what the Buddhists call Nirvana, this is it. But my Swarga had a problem. At the end of the summer, it got very cold. So I had to come down. I ran into the devotees. So it became very, very cold, and it was snowing. And the devotees at that time, they didn't have any money or anything, and they couldn't buy any warm clothes for me to go out on Sankirtan or anything. So they decided I was going to fall into Maya, but I wasn't happy just sitting and reading those old red Bhagavatams that Srila Prabhupada brought with him, all the misprints and misspellings and everything. I was just in ecstasy, but they thought I was going to, so they sent me to LA to get initiated. So this was leading into a story. What story was I going to tell? Oh, so one of the first people I met in LA was somebody named Mahapurush. Did you know Mahapurush? Do you know where he is? I don't. Anyway, he told me an amazing story. Because he said, because he knew at noontime you could go to the apartment back here, upstairs, and you could get free food, which when you're hippie, that was a big deal. And that's, one of the weapons that Prabhupada used was prasadam. And so if you came there around noontime, you get free food, these funny little breads that were flat and round like this called chapatis, and some type of vegetable called sabji, spicy vegetable, and a spicy soup called dal, and of course everybody knew rice, and then these funny things, very wonderful things called gulab jamuns. And he said, so sometimes he used to go there. So one day he came, he went upstairs, and Prabhupada was sitting there with all the, the young people, and he was telling, give him more rice, give him more sabji, and directing the thing. And Prabhupada was eating with them, and it was very nice. And somehow he just loves just sitting there with Prabhupada. And it's funny, he realized that nobody else is there in the room, just him and Prabhupada. And all these people, they were hippies, so what to speak of wash their hands, they didn't even wash their plate, just throw the plate in the sink and walk out, And he realized all these pots, somehow they get cleaned to cook every day. And all these plates somehow get cleaned to serve out every day. And there's nobody else here in this room. So there's only one other person who could be doing this. And he thought, gee, maybe I should help the guy, He started picking up the plates and pots. And Prabhupada smiled. He said, I was just praying to Krishna to send someone to please kindly help me. I was just praying to Krishna to send someone to please kindly help me. Because nobody has known what this Trinadapi Sunichena verse means except Prabhupada. He was cooking and cleaning we were the type of people that we crashed Yamaraja's hard drive trying to keep track of us. And Prabhupada was cooking and cleaning up after these people, because he just knew somehow or other they eat prasadam and they chant Hare Krishna, they'll become purified. Because just like there's one verse in Bhagavatam, when Sati goes to Daksha's sacrifice and she sees her husband is not invited, and she becomes very upset and says, that you, even if there's a mountain of good qualities, you find out one bad quality and magnify it. But my husband, Lord Shiva, even if there's a mountain of bad qualities, he finds out one good quality and expands it. I always felt that verse describes Prabhupada. We were mountains of bad qualities. But somehow or other, there was this little tiny spark in our heart. We wanted to know what life was all about. What is the purpose of life? Because I remember just before I came down from the mountains, it was a full moon, it was my birthday. I went on top of the mountain, and you know how the stars and moon and everything is so bright in the mountains without any light pollution. And we took some certain substances, and the light of the moon was coming down, and as we were speculating at the speed of mind, my friend his name was Sunshine. It didn't have anything to do with the sun. Those of the era will understand. And we were speculating at the speed of mind, and our idea was that God was the great white light, So all this white light was pouring down from the moon, and I was thinking, wow, I'm going to see God any minute. I'm going to see God. And all of a sudden I peeked, and everything turned around. I was seeing what God was seeing. Here's this dirty hippie standing on top of this rock, staring at the moon, stoned out of his mind. And I said, my God, 2 decades. That was my 20th birthday. 2 decades I've been in this world. I don't know who I am, where I'm going, or what I'm supposed to be doing. So that Prabhupada saw that despite everything, our intention was we wanted to find out what life was all about. What was the purpose of life? What was God? It never occurred to us that he was a who, because we knew the chanting. We all chanted Hare Krishna, but we didn't know We didn't even know it wasn't a what, it was a who, and he has a birthday. I ran into the devotees on the day before Janmashtami. And they said, we're going to fast all day and have a 25-course vegetarian feast at midnight. I said, sounds far out. Let's go. And one of those gulab jamuns conquered me. So there was one devotee, he's no longer in this world. He got a little deviated, but then he came back at the last, and my god-sister especially took care of him very nicely in LA, in Kartikeya. He was Prabhupada's, he was cooking for Prabhupada. Very old days. And he told me the story. It's not in any memories tape or anything, because he's no longer in this world to tape it. But he told me this story. At one time, they went to Hawaii, Gaurasundar and Govindadasi and Prabhupada and Kartikeya. They went to Hawaii. And Kartikeya was cooking. One day, Govindadasi brought back some wheat germ from the market. I never met anybody in India who knows what wheat germ is, but inside the little grain of wheat, there's this little part where the two little leaves will sprout out. That's the germ. So they somehow process it, and it's very, very healthy. So he thought, next time Swamiji, because it's old days, next time Swamiji asks for halava, I'm going to make it with the wheat germ. And Swamiji will be so pleased. So one day it rained. So when it rained, it's a little bit cold, so Prabhupada used to like to get halava because it's full of grains and ghee and keeps you nice and warm. So he told Kartikeya to make some halava. So Kartikeya went in the kitchen, and he said, I'm going to make it with the wheat germ. And Swamiji's going to be so pleased. His whole bhav was, Swamiji will be so pleased. Swamiji will be so pleased. And he put it in a bowl. He brought it into Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada took one look and says, what is this? Halava means suji, cream of wheat, suji. With his left hand. If you reject something by left hand, that's very heavy, Prabhupada said, take it out, take it away. Now Kartikeya was a very sensitive person. But that completely destroyed him. His whole bhav was that Swamiji was so pleased, he didn't know what to do. So he came in the temple room. He sat down in front of the picture of Bhaktisiddhanta, Prabhupada's spiritual master. And he began to pray that I was just trying to please your spiritual son, Swamiji. But somehow he's upset with me and I don't know what to do. And he was crying. All of a sudden he heard Prabhupada's voice. Kartikeya? Kartikeya? He ran to Prabhupada's room. He said, bring that halava. So he brought the halava. With great gusto, Prabhupada, boom, 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 bring some more. Prabhupada finished off the whole pot of halava. He said, I learned two things from that. One is that Prabhupada is not alone. There's a whole chain, because he was praying to Bhaktisiddhanta, right? There's a whole chain of spiritual masters going all the way back to Krishna, Prabhupada's not alone. Behind him is a whole chain trying to hand us this rope to get out of this deep, dark well of material existence. And second thing I learned was that Prabhupada always told that the grandfather is more merciful than the father. So many of you are thinking, we didn't meet Prabhupada like you, we're not so fortunate. You're more fortunate than us. You have Prabhupada as your grandfather's spiritual master. Prabhupada will be more merciful to you than to us. You're not unfortunate. Don't think yourself unfortunate. You're very fortunate. And we see the second generation is doing so many marvelous things. I'm traveling around the world and seeing so many marvelous things that they're doing. So I don't have a clock. I don't know. I will go on forever. This is aside from Krishna, this is my favorite subject. One more thing. My temple president was a devotee from 26 Second Avenue named Harinama. He taught me a little song. This is from old days. One of the first Krishna conscious songs that we made in English. chanting in your city, chanting in your town. Prabhupada has told us to spread this chanting round. Chanting in your city, chanting in your town. Prabhupada has told us to spread this chanting round. This is the age of Kali. It couldn't get much worse. No, your city's made of iron, concrete, stone, and glass. What hope is there for the future with such an ugly past? Chanting in your city, chanting in your town. Prabhupada has told us to spread this chanting round. This is the age of Kali. It couldn't get much worse. But Prabhupada's the guru of the whole wide universe. Chanting in your city, chanting in your town. Prabhupada has told us to spread this chanting round.
HG Deena Bandhu Prabhu Ki! Such a charming, engaging storyteller. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing those stories. So much appreciated. So, what books do you have here of yours?
We have, our latest book is called Braj Leela Part 3, Giriraj, the King of Mountains. And we went around, because everybody does Olympics. They go to Govardhan, they run around, maybe they see Radhakund and Shamakund and Kusum Sarovar and Govindakund. But there's so many places on Govardhan that you don't know. So many incredible pastimes happen. Even just Radhakund and Shamakund. I think 1/3 of the book is just Radhakund and Shamakund. So many wonderful pastimes happen there. And my other books, maybe 10 or 12 pictures are there, but we decide everybody loves his photos. His photo name is Arjun Bhattacharya. Now he's initiated Arta Bandhu. Arta means distress, so we're the Bandhu brothers. And Deena Bandhu or Arta Bandhu means a friend of the poor or distressed. So anyway, everyone loves his pictures, so we decided to make it a picture book. So there's 284 color photos and 32 paintings. We had to get permission from BBT. Even got out his drone. There's so many drone shots also. Here you can see Kusum Sarovar at night. You've probably never seen Kusum Sarovar at night, because the government's done some amazing stuff there. So 284 color photos and 32 paintings, 530 pages of nectar. We even went to Narayan Bhatt Goswami's Braj Bhakti Vilas, and he describes the whole of Braj, well, the mantras, the pranam mantras and achman mantras. And we found so many places. He gives achman mantras and pranam mantras, and nobody knows where they are in Govardhan. Even 500 years, so many places have disappeared. So now we have a printed and visual record of all the places on Govardhan. You can't imagine, you'd be amazed. For several years we were just researching and searching, so this is the fruit of that research. So we're only asking small donation, $25. And we can accept online and credit cards and so many things.
Okay, if you're interested in the book, you can see Prabhu in the back and thumb through the book and check it out.
And I'm here to sign it if you take a copy.
Very good. And I mentioned in the introduction that Deena Bandhu Prabhu is renowned for the tours he gives in Vrindavan. But he's not a tour guide. He brings you to these holy pilgrimage sites and he makes them come alive for you. It's engrossing, and that's reflected in his writing. So thank you for that. I wanted to mention that in looking around, you may see a few things that look a little odd, or certainly different, like why is there a turntable over here? Is it not 2025? Well, we're in the middle of renovating the place, so it's not 2025. We're transforming the space so it looks the way it did when Prabhupada was here in the 1966-1967 period. And sure enough, there was a turntable there, and the madrasas and these paintings, which are just coming up. All these transformations are happening in accordance with the vision of His Holiness Radhanath Swami. Executing that vision is a team of very committed devotees who are losing their hair trying to get this together in time so the devotees can enjoy it. And that effort is headed by two other disciples of Srila Prabhupada who we are graced to have with us today, Adi Deva Prabhu and Vamanadev Prabhu. And their expertise in this project has been just invaluable. So we do welcome your donations to help us to complete this renovation project and to keep the temple going. A lot of people think we own 26 2nd Avenue. ISKCON does not own it. We've been paying rent for decades now. So donations are welcome. We have also QR codes and et cetera, et cetera. Well, Prabhu, would you like to lead Kirtan?
Of course.
Okay. So Deena Bandhu Prabhu will lead us in a brief Kirtan, like maybe 5 minutes or so.
All right, no problem.
Then we will have just a couple more important announcements, so stick around for that, and then prasadam will be served. Okay, the sanctified meal, which will be all vegan in case that's a consideration for you. Okay?
Okay.
Kartals, mridanga, harmonium.
Kartal.
Kartal.
So, and this is, we'll do a nice Braj melody. So you're all tired of sitting, so this is dancing music. So you can all stand up and dance. Oh, that's heavy, yeah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pascharya Prabhupada. His divine grace. Prabhupada. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, oh. Krishna Krishna. Brajabhumi Vrindavan Dham ki, revealer of the holy Dham, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Jai Nitya Leela Vishnu Prabhupada, His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. ISKCON Samstapakacharya, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki. Ananda Gaudiya Vaishnavrinda ki. Sad Goswami Prabhu ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana ki. Braja Bhumi Vrindavan Dham ki. Sri Navadip Maya Pradham ki. Sri Jagannath Puri Dham ki. Gangamaya Jamuna Maya ki. Srimati Vrindadevi Tulsi Maharani ki. ISKCON Second Avenue ki. Jai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to you, Srila Prabhupada.
Grace Deena Bandhu, Prabhu ki!
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai! Okay, once again, thank you so much for being here. Final announcement of the evening. Two wonderful devotees who offer so much service to this tirtha and other tirthas as well are sharing a birthday today. So let me hear three very loud Hari Bols for His Grace Nadi Kishore Prabhu and His Grace Soham Prabhu. Happy birthday, Prabhu. Happy birthday. And I do believe we have a birthday cake somewhere in the back there in their honor. So relish prashad to your full satisfaction. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh, here comes the cake. Cakes, y'all take it.
Oh, I got two cakes, my goodness. What are their names?
Soham
Soham.
and Nadia Kishore. Nadia Kishore.
Hare Krishna to you, Hare Krishna to you, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna